Good day, viewers and listeners, on this virtual discussion about postmodern philosophy, which will be discussed by me, Angela Enoch, and with my teammates, Ira Almerino, Jamaica Juarez, Aravilla Cabonilas, and Ubas Karen. Postmodern philosophy in terms of education. Postmodern educators believe self-esteem is a precondition for learning. They view education as a type of therapy. Education helps individuals construct their identities rather than discover them. Individuals or society progress when people are empowered to attain their own chosen goals. So the postmodernism is a late 20th century movement in philosophy and literary theory that generally questions the basic assumptions of Western philosophy in the modern period, roughly the 17th century through the 19th century. So let's discuss the modernism before postmodernism. So postmodernism has refused most modernism's main idea. That's because the most important point of modernism's education opinion is rationality. Also, in a modern education, teachers try to educate the logical person who can live the rational society. In this situation, teachers dominate and control the students. They also knows everything and determine students' position and future. So meaning, in a modernism era, the teacher here knows everything about the students. They are the one who control the students, dominate the schools, and also they also knows your future's position. They are the one who managed you. No, like kabaw na sila unsa mahitabo nimo. Na mo ni dapat mahitabo nimo, like they controls you talaga. Okay? So postmodern philosophy rejected this following: objectivity, absolute facts, traditional epistemology, metaphysics, and universal moral values. In contrast, they emphasize on subjectivity, local facts, interdisciplinary method, individual and cultural differences, and creativity. So creative education is tied to making opportunity for new idea. If we want to motivate students, instead of introducing a theory, we should talk about it as a problem. In that way, the students try to solve it, and those problems, then in the end of the discussion, they would the one who will discover the theory.
Postmodern philosopher. First, Jacques Derrida. Born on July 15, 1930, was an Algerian-born French philosopher. He developed a philosophical approach that came to be known as the deconstruction, which he utilized in numerous texts and which was developed through close reading of the linguistic of Ferdinand de Saussure and Husserlian and Heideggerian phenomenology. Jacques Derrida, a French philosopher, was well known for his controversial approach to understanding the world, the deconstruction method, and was a major contributor to postmodernism. The deconstruction method is a process of criticizing literary texts, philosophical texts, and political theories. It entails the breakdown of the rational purposes, or logos, of early Western philosophy that was believed to govern the universe. Additionally, Derrida believed that universal rationality was not found in an objective reality, but in the text. Simply stated, deconstruction is simply a method of exploring the text to find additional shades of meaning. Next, Martin Heidegger. Martin Heidegger, another German philosopher, is known for creating the concept of existentialist phenomenology. Existentialist phenomenology concludes that we construct our own truth from within, as opposed to the theories that advocate one universal truth. Furthermore, Heidegger inferred that we are not born into existing reality but construct our own reality based on our involvement in the world and on our innate institutions. Heidegger sees modern technology as the fulfillment of Western metaphysics, which he characterized as the metaphysics of the presence. From the time of the earliest philosophers, but definitely with Plato. Says Heidegger, Western thought has conceived of being as the presence of beings, which in the modern world has come to mean the availability of being for use. In fact, as he writes in Being and Time, the presence of being tends to disappear into the transparency of their usefulness as things, ready to hand. The essence of technology, which he names the enframing, reduced the being of entities to a calculative order. Hence, the mountain is not a mountain, but standing supply of coal. The Rhine is not the Rhine, but an engine for hydroelectric energy. And humans are not human, but reserves of manpower. The experience of the modern world, then, is the experience of being withdrawal in face of the enframing and its way over beings. However, humans are affected by this withdrawal in moments of anxiety or boredom, and therein lies in the way to possible return of being, which would be tantamount to a repetition of the experience of being opened up by the Parmenides and Heraclitus. Heidegger says this as the realizations of the will to power. Jean-Francois Lyotard
was a French sociologist, philosopher, and a literary theorist. He was born on August 10, 1924 in Versailles, France, and died April 21, 1998 in Paris at the age of 73. He was the founder of postmodernism and a master in philosophy. He famously defines postmodernism as incredulity towards maternatives, where maternatives are understood as totalizing stories about history and the goals of the human race that around and legitimize knowledges of cultural practices. Michel Foucault was a French philosopher, historian of ideas, writer, political activist, and literary critic. He was born on August 15, 1926 and died June 25, 1984 at the age of 57. He had defined postmodernity with reference to two dividing concepts, such as discourse and power. Foucault's ideas gave rise in the 1970s and 80s to philosophical postmodernism, a movement characterized by broad epistemological skepticism and ethical subjectivism, a general suspicion of reason, and an acute sensitivity to the role of ideology in asserting and maintaining political and economic power. His contribution to postmodernism was his critique of modernity and liberal humanism. This also involved his genealogical approach to the study of sexuality, madness, and power.
Postmodernist educators embrace and encourage individual expressions, going further to encourage cross-cultural dialogue and debate as a necessary factor in the education process. An important point raised by postmodernism is that political factors and themes, such as power and social inequality, must be addressed if a teacher is to provide a holistic education. These themes are as relevant to science and mathematics as they are to social sciences, with the postmodernist view rejecting the idea that subjects should be rigidly compartmentalized.
Thank you, Ira. So let's move on to the important values that should be taught by the teachers to the students in the postmodern philosophy. So these are the following. Number 1, striving for diversity. Number 2, tolerance. Number 3, freedom. Number 4, creativity. Number 5, emotions. Number 6, intuition. So let's go back to the number 1, striving for diversity. So it does not mean that students shall be accepting cultural practices and belief without question. So have you remember during our first day of school, 'di ba, from grade 1 until college, ang first activity nga ato ang buhaton jud sa atong first day of school is to introduce ourselves. So what do you think why our teachers always ask about ourselves? Like what like who we are, where we came from, what are our likes and dislikes, what are our hobbies. So, aside sa to know our name, teachers ask those questions because they want to know our cultural processes, our ethnicity, our gender as well, and our belief it may be politically, socially, or religiously. So teachers ask those questions in order for them to recognize our differences because in the classroom every student are different. We have our different background, 'di ba? So that is striving for diversity. So number 2 is that tolerance. So the acceptance of the differing views of other people and the fairness towards the people who hold these different views. So, 'di ba? Every students are unique. We are different to each other. We have different knowledge, ideas, views, perspective and opinion of such things. So, tolerance, it is the purely acceptance of the different views, ideas, perspective from the values of individual. So that the teachers, on the other hand, accept different views, ideas, perspective from the different learners or from the diverse form of learning because every students are unique and we have our own knowledge. So, that is tolerance. So, number 3, freedom. So, freedom, it is the considerable autonomy is given to both teachers. It is localizing activities in the classroom and students in terms of their decision making. So, do you know that nga ang freedom help both teachers and students? So, sa teachers, freedom help them to plan, to set, or to localize activities in the classroom. So, of course, teachers, so yes, they also, they're still following the curriculum. So, but they have the freedom to do what they want, 'di ba? Na sila freedom kung unsaon nila freedom kung unsaon nila pag-deliver sa lesson sa ilang sa students because teachers already know kung unsa ang applicable of teaching. So methods, techniques sa pagtudlo sa iyahang students so that ang lesson is ma-understand jud sa iyahang mga ang lesson sa iyahang students. They make their own techniques sa pagtudlo and activities because they already know kung unsaon kung unsa ang effective way and techniques para ma-deliver ang lesson o para jud makat-on ang mga students. So mao na siya. And then sa students side, freedom help them in terms of their decision making. So like for the example, ang teachers naghatag siya og activity. So as a student, so we have our freedom to make decision kung buhaton ba nato ang activities or pasagdan ra siya, 'di ba? So we have our decision, but those decisions na jud siya kasabay nga consequence. So depende sa decision nga imong buhaton. So kung imong buhaton ang activity, of course nindot jud ang iyang kuan. So, nay possibility nga makapasar ka. So, di ba dako ka grado, so mao na siya. So, on the other hand, kung di sa di mo siya buhaton, of course, mahagbong jud ka. Kung pasagdan ra na nimo siya, di mo buhaton ang mga activities. So, students na mo dyan na ang freedom niya. So it's a matter of choice, di ba? It's a matter of their decision. So kung unsa ang ilang ganahan mahitabo sa ilang kinabuhi. So it's up to the students. So kung ganahan ta nga makapasar, so dapat di nato pasagdan ang atong buhaton jud nato ang mga activities, mga projects nga gipanghatag sa mga teachers. So mo siya ang freedom. So number 4, creativity. So this is the ability to use the imagination to develop new and original ideas or things. So creativity opens them in the world of communication. So you need to be more creative to develop your own ideas. It is where you made use of your wide imagination and innovative. So we need to develop new ideas to be innovative as a future educator, because that the students learn something from their teacher. Diba? So let's move on to emotion. So emotion, it is the expressing a strong feeling directly towards a specific object, which is accompanied by psychological and behavioral changes in the body. So on the other hand, this is the substantial influence in the cognitive process on the behavioral of the students. So like for the example, so what are the emotions? 'Di ba? Happy, sad, angry, or mad. So mo na siya ang mga kuan nga mga emotions, 'di ba? So of course, you have used your emotions to create a better ideas. So you always just remember that you must have a proper control of your emotions, because it may lead to a disaster if it is not properly used, diba? Kung imong emotion is, of course, makakuan dyan siya, diba? Makatabang dyan siya sa pagtudlo ang paggamit sa emotion. Dapat nasad sa proper. Like, kung happy ka, kay pakita ni mga smile ka, ana, diba? So that's it. So let's move on to the intuition. So intuition, it is the images, cognitive, or a feeling that guides a person to act certain way without fully understanding why. So intuitions, so you have the ability to read a situation, or you have an immediate understanding without reasoning. So it is the ability to handle a conflict in the classroom situation that require immediate action. So as a teacher, you must have the intuition or this ability. So like for the example, so ang teacher, naglakaw siya padung sa iyang classroom. So he heard nga saba kayo ang iyahang classroom. And then pag kuan niya sa pultahan, nanglingkod ang tanan, and then nanghilom. So pagsud niya, nakita niya ang usa ka students nga beaten up. So sa iyang head, he already know kung unsa ang nahitabo. So na siya idea kung unsa ang mga possible nga nahitabo nganong nagsaba kaayo sila, and ngano sad nga luoy kayo ang usa ka students. So in the intuition, so hibaw na siya kung unsa ang possible nga nahitabo, and he already know kung how to handle the problem. So that is intuition all about. So thank you. So I hope you learn.
World, teaching and learning addresses these points. First, knowledge about ways in which to live and learn in an open system in which there is considerable ambiguity and development. The postmodern instructor leads their students through the data and information to the knowledge that is involved with the purposes of the course of studies and with the meaning relative to the life of each individual student. Next, creation of individual plans wherein the learner is an active participant, creation of partnerships between teachers and students in learning a body of knowledge within a contemporary context,
Ideas are brought together through a holistic approach to form new ways of knowing the world. New learning relationships and knowledge creation potential are heightened and are an exciting aspect of the postmodern class. Lastly, meta strategies or metacognitive strategies are required. Students learn how to learn. Learners are encouraged to find personal meaning from the learning, as the teacher is allowed to discard the mask of authority and be more themselves, modeling the lifelong learning value of postmodernism.